Hello everyone and welcome to our new video. Today I'm going to try something new and we'll try to build a flow from scratch. We are going to build a QA bot that will answer questions using a Google Sheets as a database, and we will also leverage the power of OpenAI Embeddings API to make it work. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is connect our robot. If you haven't installed the robot yet, you can install it from robomotion.io/downloads from here. Just download robot and install it, and then we will connect our robot with our credentials. The workspace looks like this: your username and password, and let's sign in. And I will connect one of my robots from here. Now we are ready to go. The first thing we will need is a Google Sheet document. So I'm going to create one, and let's try to read from the document first, and then we can continue. So let's create a sheet from here. Let's call this QA document. Let's create a column name here. Let's call this question and answer. So we are going to need a QA database, which I don't have, but I can come up with some questions mostly asked in our community channel at Discord. So I copied the error message to here. So let's change it to how can I solve problem, and let's write an answer here. First you should make sure that you have the latest robot installed. You can install the robot from robomotion.io/downloads. This is one of them, and the other one, how can I run the flow? Cloud and desktop run options are disabled. So if you did not connect a robot, you will see these disabled, but I have cloud minutes to run my flow, and also I have connected my robot from my desktop, so I can use both. So how can I run the flow? Cloud and run options are disabled. And let's say that means you haven't installed and connected your robot. Please follow. Let's get the document path. Getting started. Please follow the steps in this document. Okay, 2 questions. Now let's try to read this sheet from the flow. For that we will need Google Sheets package. Right click and install. And every flow starts with an inject node, and we usually change this to start. And Google Sheets, we will need open spreadsheet. We will need the URL of the document. So let's put it here. We don't need these. And we will need credentials. We will look into that in a couple of minutes, and we will need get range, and we can put a debug here to see if we have read the document. Now for the credentials, you can follow the steps described here. I will also follow Google service account steps. So let's go to consoledevelopersgoogle.com. I have a fake account that is empty, so I can use this. So it says create a new project. Let's create a new project. Let's call it Robomotion QA doc and create. And the next step is go to API library. API library here, and then search for Google Sheets API. Sheets API, and click here and press enable. Now we have enabled the Google Sheets API in this project. Now we can create the service account keys that we are going to use in the flow. It is ready. Let's go to credentials and click the credentials thing here, create credentials thing, and we'll create a service account. Let's give it a name, Robomotion QA doc, let's say, and QA document bot service account. Continue. If you need anything here, it's optional, so we can skip. And now we can go to click here and then go to keys, and we can add a key, create new key. We will use the JSON one. We have downloaded it. I will copy it and paste it in my notepad, or we can keep it here. Okay, now we have to add this service account key to our vault. Let me open my vault screen. I haven't created a bot yet. Let's create one. Let's call it QA Vault. No description. Create. And we should keep this vault secret key. This is important. We will use this key. Vault secret key. And we can open the vault and create a new item. We will create a document type item. Let's call this QA doc SA service account JSON, and we need to paste this to here and save it. Okay, we are done. The last thing we have to do is the vault keeps everything encrypted, but the robot also needs that vault secret key. We have to inject that vault secret key to the robot. We can do it from admin console robot screen. Here you will see an inject secret button, and enter your workspace password here again to open your vault. And now we can select the vault and enter our secret key and inject it. If you see this green notification, you are done. And now we can test our sheet. One last thing, we need to share this document with the service account email. So there should be an email somewhere. we need to find service account. This is the service account email. We need this. Let's copy it. And we need to share it. We need to share the document with the service account email. Add, yes, editor, and send. Now we are ready to read this document. Everything is ready. We just need to set the credentials here. We have created the QA vault, and we entered the secret the service account key in our vault, and now we have to select that item, and now it should run. Let's see. Okay, we have a problem. Invalid URL. I think I did something wrong. Maybe let's check this URL. It ends with E. Let's check it here. Yes, it looks correct. Maybe we only need the ID. I don't remember. Let's try this one. No. Let's try all the URL. It worked. So let's check our logs. Get range finished, but no debug. Why? Let's try this again. And let's rerun. Okay, now we see the debug output, and we see two columns, A, B, and the rows. We see 3 rows here because we haven't selected the headers and JSONify here. Headers says that this document has column headers, and the getRange node will use them as column names here, and we'll replace that, and they don't count them as rows, so we will have 2 rows. Now let's run this again. Okay, everything looks good, and we can continue. Now we have the questions and answers. We can create our embedding database with the help of OpenAI. We also need to add the OpenAI keys here in our vault. Let me add that. The same vault, create item, and we will select the API key token here. Let's rename it OpenAI key, and let me copy paste it from my notepad. Okay. Now we can use OpenAI package. Let's also install that. Right click and install. Okay, now we need to generate embeddings from our questions and answers. To do that, I will take a look into a flow that was shared in a webinar. Let me find that. It was our last webinar. Here you can download all the templates.
Job, but your process processes though.
You can download all the templates from this PDF. And here we have a similar example. Document chat. Let's go to this link and import it to our workspace. And we can copy from here. Now let's continue. Let's check this flow. This flow uses a PDF document. We will not use a PDF. We will use our questions and answers, and from those we will create our embeddings. So let's start with the connect node. Let's put a connect node here. OpenAI connect, and select our credentials. And now we have to create the text to pass it to this create batch embeddings node. We can use a function here. So we will need to create whole text from the questions and answers. We have message table that has rows, and we can use that maybe with a for each loop. We can do that. Let's create a text here, an empty text, and then init text. Let's call this init text, and let's use a for each node here, and we will loop through the message table rows. For each item we will call it row, and then we may need this index. We can use that, and for each iteration we will add that question and answer to our text variable. Let's add it like this. Now we will have a question. This is string interpolation. If you use these backticks, you can use dollar and curly braces, and inside that you can use your message object like this. So we have two columns, question and answer. Let's write this one here and answer here. Okay, now we are appending text with these question and answers, and when the for each loop finishes, we will have all the questions and answers in our message text field here. Let's save this and append text. Let's go to the beginning of for each with a goto. And now we have our message text, and we will continue our for each. So we can use create batch. Yeah, we can use that. OpenAI embeddings, create batch embeddings, and here the input will be message text. You can give this a file as in this flow, but if you, so the PDF packages extract text, extracts the text data from PDF and writes it into this path that is defined here, this one. And create batch embeddings node can use a file if you select input data type as file path, but we now have text only inside the message object, so we will keep this like this, and we will just need to write the output path. For that, I have created a folder here. We can use this folder. This is the path of this folder. Maybe we can add also a function node here and rename it as config, and let's call it input CSV, or let's call it DB CSV. Yes, it is our DB. So the path is home fig learn DB CSV. Let's call this one. And now we can use this as an output path for our CSV. Oh, this is the full name of the CSV. So yeah, we gave the full name, so it's okay. DB CSV. We'll just use DB CSV. And this looks okay. This looks okay. So we can continue. So here we ask the question. So yeah, we will also use an input box here. Maybe let's copy all this or cut all this and create a subflow out of them. This is all related to creating the DB, creating the embeddings out of the spreadsheet. And let's create a subflow here and rename it as read sheet and create embeddings, or let's just call it create embeddings. And let's paste here. Where did the config node gone? It's here. Oh, okay, it can be there. So let's connect this begin of Subflow, and now we can connect this to the end of the Subflow. So this is much clear, and here and here. Maybe we can move this to the beginning of the flow, because maybe we can disconnect this node later, because we will have the embeddings. We don't need to create all the time the embeddings every time we run our flow. And let's connect it here. Okay, now we can continue. Let's put an input box here, and the input box, we will have a title, ask a question, the text, let's call this ask me anything, and let's call the text your question. This will be the title of the dialog, and this will be the label. The output, let's name it into question. And now we will have our question in message question. Now what we need to do is we need to create the embeddings of that question for later to compare it with our database. How OpenAI embeddings works is you convert the text into some vector numbers, and you keep those numbers in your DB, and you ask a question, you also turn those into a vector numbers, and you calculate the similarity between the question's answers and your question. And if you find the similarity, you may find maybe one or more questions and answers that are similar to your question. You just get those texts out of the database, and we will create a prompt to OpenAI telling that here are my questions and answers, related to, similar to this question that the user asked, please answer by using this info. We will tell ChatGPT this, and we will get our response from ChatGPT. Now what we are doing here, we are creating embeddings for our question. And so I think we copy pasted it because everything came from here. Okay, so we again used question. The output of this input box is message question. We have it here, but the out embedding CSV, we don't have that. Let's define it here, and let's use the same path here, but change the CSV and save it. Now we have the embedding for the question, and we will use the similarity node afterwards. Here we'll use the similarity node, and the search embeddings is our question, so it is in question path, the CSV file. The content embeddings is in our DB, I think question path and DB path, DB CSV and question path. Let's change it to question CSV, DB CSV and question CSV. So the output will be question CSV, the similarity will be question CSV, and the embedding is DB CSV. And we will have our similarity output. So these are the question and answer blocks that are similar to this question or related to this question. This can be any match you like. If your database has 100 entries, you can just find the most relevant 5 of them, and you can pass this to ChatGPT with a prompt. The problem here is the ChatGPT prompt has a context limit. So if you are using 4K input tokens, you may pass that. So 750 words are 1000 tokens approximately. So you can calculate from that. But let's keep it 5. We only have 2 entries currently. Let's see what happens. And now we will have our similarity. With this similarity, we will create our prompt. So we will need we'll first test what we have done until here. Let's see if it works, and then see the similarity output and continue. So let's run this. Okay, now embeddings are created, and we come to this input box. What we should ask? Let's open our spreadsheet again. We can ask, what is invalid session ID? Not this one, this one. What is invalid session ID? Let's ask this, and as you can see, now we have the similarity output. The content is here. We have found the relevant question and answer from our database, so we can pass this to ChatGPT in a prompt. As you can see, it did not return the how can I run the flow question, but only the relevant one here. So we can pass this to ChatGPT. I will stop it here, and we can continue. Also, let's save this and rename our flow. Let's call this QA doc bot. Rename. Okay. Now we have the similarity output. There is only one currently, but we need to create a prompt. So again, we need one text data to pass to ChatGPT. For that, we will use a function. I will again copy from here. So this code gets all the values from similarity. As you can see, the similarity, I have deleted that. The similarity output here. The similarity has a content field here, and it has key and values. What is this one? These are the scores. So it is sorted to these scores, and as you can see, content has key and value. We just need these values from this output. So for that, in JavaScript, we have something called object values. If you use this and give the key value item here, it will return all the values only, so not the zero part, not the one index part, but the value part as a string array, and you can join them with new line characters. This is what it does. So let's copy it from here, and now we have all the database data inside this context variable. Now we will create our prompt to ChatGPT, like when you are using the UI. Let's check what we wrote here. We say here's a context for you. Answer the question only from this context, and if you don't know the answer, say you don't know it. So let's copy this, and also we paste our question into this prompt. Now we have all the text related to this question, and also we enter our question into our prompt, and we pass all this data to ChatGPT to process it and generate us a response. Now let's see what we will have. Let's call this prepare prompt. Prepare prompt, and now we can call the ChatGPT create completion node to get our answer. So it is under chat create completion, and let's pass our prompt here, and that's all we need to do. And let's put a debug here to get our answer from ChatGPT. There's nothing else. Oh, just the message box to display the response. Let's do that. So the ChatGPT create chat completion node returns the output in message completion. It is a JSON object, and we can copy the output content from here. We will also look into the object, but let's copy it from here, and we can compare it. Let's call the title ChatGPT, and the response is completion choices 0 message content. We don't need a debug, but let's see the object, and now we can run this. Here we will create the embeddings again. We don't need that, so we could have removed that from this flow, but let's ask our question again. What is invalid session ID and how can I solve it? So all the data is passed to ChatGPT. Now we are waiting our response. Invalid session ID typically occurs when there is a problem with the connection user and the application. It means that the session ID provided by the user. This is not a relevant question answer. solve this, you can try the following. This is irrelevant. So let's try to fix this. So let's first check the prompt. Here's the context for you. Answer the question on the form. Okay. How can solve? How can solve? Let's fix that first. How can I solve? And maybe let's add what is invalid session ID. Let's add an answer here. It means your Chrome process did not start correctly and robot could not create a session to drive the browser from the automation flow. Let's add this answer and let's try again. Maybe we will play with our prompt also. Let's check here. Here's a context for you. Let's call it, here is a question and answers. Questions and answers. Question and answer database for you. Let's call it question and answer database for you. Answer the given question only from this database, and if you don't know the answer, say you don't know. Let's try this one. Let's call this database and save it. Let's try again. Embeddings are created again. Now, what is invalid session and how can I solve it? Let's try again. Yeah, it is much more relevant. Solve the problem. If you have latest version of the automation robot installed, restart your computer, try running the flow again. Also, yeah, we can say it is relevant. Okay, now it is better, we can say. Now we have our flow running here with input box and message box, and we have a Google Sheets document here. What we need is, we need a way to update the database all the time and get the answers from that database. So our flow will run forever, but we need to create embeddings when needed or when the document is updated. So we can maybe use something like HTTP requests. We can call our HTTP web service to update the embeddings. We can do that. It's a way, yeah. And then that would be up to date all the time. So let's try to do that. So let's separate the create embeddings from this flow. Create embeddings from this flow. Let's move it here. We will again need the connect node here. Maybe we can copy it. We'll also use it also here. And we can, you put a disconnect here. Disconnect And to trigger this, we need to get the database CSV. I believe here we were using that. Create embeddings. Maybe we can use a global variable. That would be better. So let's create a string and call this db CSV. But let's see if this can. I think there was a bug in the packages. Maybe it can't read it. It is fixed. Okay. So for the embedding CSV, we can use the variable db CSV, and let's paste it here. Let's paste it here. The default value will be this one. So we can erase this. And also let's move this one to the global variables. Question CSV. Okay, now we don't need the config, but let's keep it. Maybe we will use it later. But let's check our yeah, we were using question comes from the input box. The output is actually question CSV. Similarity should also use the global variable question CSV and global db CSV, and it seems okay here. And let's go to this one. We can also add our spreadsheet URL here. Spreadsheet URL. And use global spreadsheet. Okay, everything looks good. Create batch embeddings. Input from text. That's correct. The output to global DB. Okay, we are also done here. Let's save this. This is not refreshed. Let's refresh this. Okay. Now we have another branch here. We are using the same global variables and not the message object variables. So everything looks good. Now we need a trigger here. We will use HTTP in. And let's give a name to our endpoint. So let's call it update DB. Okay. And we will use the get method for keeping it simple. And we should return actually with something. We can use just a text here. We can return okay. It should work. And now let's test this endpoint. And do we need this to start? Yeah, there is no problem. It will just wait at the input box. So let's run this. Let's check our robot. Let's disconnect it and connect it again. Okay, now I can run this. This branch will start, but it won't be a problem. It will wait at this input box. So what we need here, we need to trigger this one. So let's call and update DB. This was our endpoint name. It is triggered. Now the database is updated. And Okay, now we can ask our question again. What is invalid session ID? Let's see if it works. Maybe we can improve the answer. And now what we need to do here is we added an update endpoint, and when we trigger that, it updates our database. Now we can connect this with our spreadsheet here. We can do that. So you will always be working in the spreadsheet, improving the questions and answers, but you don't need to go to the flow and run it or call a web service. You just need to update this one. To make the things simpler, we can add a button here to call our service. So let's create a button, and actually there is a shape. Okay, and let's put a text here and name it update DB. Okay, save and close. Now let's put this button somewhere here, so that when we update this document, we want to press this button and update the database by calling our web service. So to do that, we can assign a script here. So let's call update DB function that we don't have yet. When you click here, it will say script function update DB could not be found. So let's add that. Here from extensions, app scripts, we can create a function here named update DB. I searched how to do this, but that is very simple. So this is the line to call an endpoint. This we can use for test because our robot is running on my laptop. So this is a local, it has a local IP. Google Sheets is running on internet, so it can't reach to my machine. We will use something for that, but let's first try this one. We don't need a response, just there is a logger option here. I'm just copying from my notes. Okay, that's it. Let's save this, and if you run this, let's see what happens. Maybe nothing, because this is just a function that we are not calling it. Oh, it asks for a permission. Let's review that permission. This is my fake account. Let's select that, click advanced, and go to untitled project, unsafe, save, yes, allow, and now it run. Now we can see that, but let's test it from our DB. As you can see, it has run. Now we need to connect to our robot. We first use this IP address, but from internet Google Sheets can't reach to this one. For that we will use, for this project, ngrok. But if your robot is installed on a VPS that has an external IP, then you can use that IP and then it will work. But for my setup, I'll need something called ngrok. It was easier before to download it. Okay. For your operating system, you need to download ngrok. So let's use this one. We need to first download it. Okay, it's now downloading, and then we should run this one because it extracts the tar.gz that is downloaded in this previous line here. Now we can run this. Let's copy this again. Let's check the downloads. Is there a file there? Linux S390. That is great. Then we have to select it. Okay, let's try this one. We downloaded the mainframe version. Okay, now it should work. What this line does is we downloaded this tar.gz file. Tar command will extract it into user local bin. So now we should have ngrok binary. From Windows, you will also install it from this tab, and from the command line, when you run ngrok, you should see something like this. Now how this works is, if I remember correctly, yes, ngrok http and the port for your service in this local machine, and that is 9090 here. We start listening from 9090 from this IP. This is local IP, and if we run this, we will have this URL. And let's copy this link into here, and the endpoint name was update.db. It was also here, update.db. Now this should run. Let's try to run this. This is HTTPS. This is not correct. There's some bad gateway. Why do we have this? Because we did not use 9090, I think. No. Let's try 9090, but I don't think it should work. But let's try this one. Let's try this again. HTTP 9090, and let's see this hole. This is correct, and maybe our robot is not running. That's why. Okay, let's run it. That's the problem. Now that's why we get 502 bad gateway error. Bad gateway means our local service is not running. Now when we try this, we don't need this 9090, because as you can see here, this URL will forward the request coming from internet to this local 9090, but we need this endpoint name. Now let's try this. Why can't I use run now? Why can't I use run now? Let's refresh this and run again. Now what? Because we rerun the ngrok, the URL has changed, so let's update it. Now it should work. Let's run it. As you can see, it is triggered from internet, from Google Sheets, and this means when we press this update button, our flow should be triggered. Okay, let's try this again. As you can see, it is now running. Now this is okay. Now we have Google Sheets. We have a flow that can be updated from the Google Sheets with this update DB button. Whenever we update this question and answer, we have to click this button. Now we don't want to use input boxes, message boxes. Let's now turn this into an assistant bot. So for that, we need to create a bot from admin console. We don't need this. We can close this one. We can close this one. But let's open our spreadsheet again. It is now in the variable section. Can select it. Copy, and let's keep it here. Maybe bookmark it. Down. Where is our update DB button? Here. Okay. Now we will turn this into an assistant bot to not use this input box and message boxes. To do that, we need to go to admin console, and from the bot section, click add bot, and let's name it Q&A doc bot answers questions from QADB. We have to select the publish flow here. We did not publish our flow, so we have to save our flow first and then create a version. And then publish this. If you do not publish, it won't be seen in admin console. If you go to this here, only the published flows are seen from admin console. Now from bots again, let's call this Q&A bot. Description, Q&A bot answering questions from Sheets DB, and let's select our published flow, the version. We can use an icon, but I will skip that for now. We have to unselect this headless bot part. If we create this bot like this, it will only take inputs and create outputs without an application UI, but we are going to be using our chat interface, chat application, and connect this bot to that application. So we need to uncheck this one. Unfortunately, we will have to re-enter those again. Select Robomotion Assistant. This is the only application in this repository currently. I can paste my description and call it Q&A doc bot. Again, select the flow v1. We won't need an application. We don't need an icon. This requires the URL, and then just click create. Now we can go to the bot console, and we will see our bot Q&A doc bot created here. Click this one and create an instance. What this does is this creates another robot in your workspace. So as you can see, I have 6 application robot licenses, and we have used one of them by creating this instance. We can rename this Q&A doc Mark 1. Let's call this Mark 1. When you go to the admin console, you will see this robot added here. So this is an application robot created and deleted only from bot console. If you add another instance of this bot, you can create another, you can use another application robot license and create another instance, but we will just use one. And if you click here, you can run this robot from here, not from the Flow Designer. This interface is for non-technical people. This designer and admin console are used by technical people, RPA developers. You create your flows here or automations here, and you deploy it to admin console and from there to bot console, and people will come log in to this bot console and can use your bot easily. It is like a mobile application. So we won't run this from here because we are still developing it in the designer. We will run it from the designer, but what we needed was this instance so that we will have our application robot. Now I can connect my application robot from this interface. So I have 4 robots currently. If you sign out and sign in again, you will see the application robot also. Let's connect our, we won't use this actually anymore, but let's also connect our application robot. And now we can run our flow in our application robot. Now the application robot instances acts a little different from production and development robots. We won't be needing this inject node here, because inject node, when you press play, just starts the flow. We don't need that. We don't need that. We will need the chat interface, and when someone writes to that chat interface or uses that chat interface, then it should be triggered and run. So let's delete this one, and we are not using this config. Now we can delete this one, and we need to use the app in node here. This is special. This is from application package. You will just need the app in node. When a new chat interface is opened, this will trigger. We will see in a couple of minutes. Let's connect this one here and let's follow this path. So here we used input box. Now we don't need that because we will have our chatbot interface. We won't need input box and message box anymore. But let's try our chat interface, and for that we need another package. For the assistant interface, we have a Robomotion Assistant package. Now let's just try with a simple one and put a text here, and let's add a welcome message. Welcome to our Q&A bot, and let's end the conversation, but let's connect it later to see how it acts differently. Now I can run this. You need to use the application robot instance we have created here, and we connected from our computer. I'll select that one and run the flow. Versions are read only. Oh, I selected a version. I switched to the version. Okay, let's save it and let's try overwrite. So it should overwrite to the master, but from the v1. So we have to again change this one and use append. Now we are at the master version, and add text again, and let's call it welcome to QA bot. Welcome to the QA bot. And end conversation, but we were not connecting that. Save again and run this. Again, our application robot. Okay, now the flow is started, but nothing happens. Only this should work. Let's see if it works. Yes, it is working. But this one is not triggered yet. For that, we need to open the chat interface. If you go to the main page, you will see a running instance info here. If you click the open app button, it will open our assistant application and we should see our text. This one will run forever. If you use the end conversation, then you will not see this one. So let's continue. We have a welcome message in our chatbot. Stop this. And we can continue. So here we don't need an input box, but the output should be in message question. And let's put a text box here, again from the assistant interface. Now the output, let's call this question label. Let's call it again question, and this is the timeout. You will wait until the user writes something and submits something. You need to follow this timeout. If after 30 seconds the user did not enter anything, it will throw an exception. So you need to catch that exception somewhere for your flow not to stop. So let's add a catch here. And let's also put these into a subflow. Update DB. Okay, maybe we can move it here. Save it, and we will use the output from here. Let's see the output, and let's run this. Okay, it should start. Refresh this page, get the welcome message, and we now have this one. What is invalid session ID? Now let's see what is returned here, and we will see it's inside payload question, so we need to use that. Let's stop this, and it is now payload question, and I think we need to change here. There's also, it's also used in here, payload question, and yeah. And now we will run this branch again to search the question in our database, and then return the result. Some way we need to return the result, and that is with the text node here. The output is this one. There may be a bug that does not understand this indexing, so we updated it, but the assistant version is not compiled for that. Let's use a function node here. Let's use a function node here, call it set response. So this indexing may be a problem in that input, so let's put into a response here, and then now we can use it. We don't need message box anymore. We will call it send response or write response, and let's change this name to welcome. And now we should have our response, but we need to continue to question and answer. So for that we need to use a go to node here, and let's add a text box here again, because there is only welcome message. Let's call it your question. No, this one, the text here, your question, or ask your question. Let's change it into, this is the enter question one, and let's put a label here. And let's select this one. Let's rename it to next Q, and this one to next, go to next Q. And now we should also use catch, and let's call it like this one. You did not take an action for some time. So this session is ended. Please refresh your page to start again. And let's call end conversation here. I will not put a stop because that will stop the flow. The stop should run forever. Now for this I need to select welcome, your question, enter question, and write response. So this is return text, but why does this also requires a timeout to be cached by this node? Because the user may close this window, and this answer could not be returned to that browser, and it can also timeout. So there are two timeouts. Timeout from the user, when you see the text box, it will timeout for after 30 seconds default. Now we changed it to 300 seconds, and after that it will time out, and this will be catched by this node, and we will end the session conversation here. Let's put continue error here. Now it should be ready. Now let's test this. Let's run it again. And refresh this. Now ask your question. What is invalid session ID and how can I fix it? Now we are waiting response from ChatGPT and we have a problem. Completion is not defined. Let's check here. This should be message.completion. Again, stop and run this. Let's now refresh the page. Again, refresh. I don't think we refreshed it. Now let's try this tab. Okay, it's working. Now what is invalid session ID and how can I fix it? It's running. Now we should have the response, but we did not. Why? Let's see. So this is wrong. This should be message response. So last time, I think this will work now. The error is the timeout. It should be timeout. One of the closed tabs. It was caused by one of the closed tabs, I believe. Now let's start this again. Let's refresh. Maybe open it in another tab again may work. Something seems to be wrong, or it's taking a lot of time. Okay, it's now. What is invalid session ID and how can I fix it? Please, now return me a response. Okay, now we got our answer. Now the bot is ready. Now we can stop this. It is working. Everything is ready. Now we can create another version and call it last version working. Let's name it. Okay, and then publish it. There is another way. We could have also use sync option here. This overwrites the master onto this v1 version, but it is not a good practice. You should always create versions for your milestones, and now we will use this in the bots here and we will update the version. edit v2. Now this is needed for running the bot. Let's refresh this. There is no flow running now. I will close this. I will disconnect this also. First we can run this from our desktop. Let's try that one first. We don't need designer anymore. We have finished our development. We don't need admin console, but let's keep it. We can run this flow now from only the bot console. Now pick the instance, press play and click desktop. Now as you can see, it is colored. When you click open app, you should see the flow running on our desktop. So yeah, we are done actually. There is another step maybe we can take, but currently Cloud Run feature does not support HTTP calls from outside. You need to install this robot into a VPS server that has a public IP, so that you can use your public IP in the script to update the DB. But let me show you. But we will not be able to run Q&A session because there will be no DB for the Cloud Run option. Maybe I will show that in another time. So that's now done. We have created our bot. We have deployed it into our bot console as a bot, and we can update this document and then ask questions about that, and we will get our answers always up to date. If we keep this database up to date, and if we add relevant questions and answers, more detailed ones, ChatGPT will answer much better with these data, and you will have your Q&A doc bot be useful to your users. So thank you for watching. See you in our next video.